This is Piratebox 2 and it almost works. In terms of being a pirate box, it's perfect. It's got 3 antennas. One's the uplink to a nearby wireless network for internet connectivity. These 2 are for high gain antennas for clients to connect with. It does not need an internet connection. It's fully autonomous, but it does enable some extra functionality if it can. It connects to the IPFS network. It has 60 gigabytes of storage for uploaded files, and that can be expanded just by sticking in USB sticks, as I used BTRFS for that partition. It works brilliantly, with one small flaw. See, I used the Raspberry Pi 3B because I thought I would need a ton of processing power to run IPFS. Turns out I was wrong. Actually, we've optimised it quite nicely. IPFS does not need that much processing power at all. So this thing is saddled with a very power hungry board there. And the buck converter that I chose for its extremely high efficiency isn't actually that good at supplying a lot of current. So occasionally, as this shows, you get voltage sags and brownouts. To give some idea of how bad this is, yeah, the wiggly line between -3 and -400 is the current consumption of this thing, 3 to 400 milliamps, and that's directly measured on the batteries, where it's slightly under 8.5 volts at the moment. So that's quite a decent amount of current going into the buck converter, and probably twice that coming out roundabouts. It just can't handle it, which is resulting in brownouts, instability. It mostly works, but not perfectly. It will occasionally crash. After enough hours of use, the electrons will line up wrong and it goes. I've experimented with the possibility of running this at below intended voltage. Doesn't work. Although all the Pi's electronics, except for the HDMI and USB sides, are 3.3 volts, the regulator that generates the lower voltage rails needs at least 3.5 volts. It will actually run on as low as 3 volts, but it won't be stable. It won't boot up on that voltage. Minimum supply voltage for Pi 0 is 3.5 volts. And that's if you don't need the HDMI interface, so you don't need USB. As you can see, this one does need USB, so that's a dead end. I do have Piratebox 3 in development. You can see this one uses a Pi 0W, and hopefully it'll work a lot better. And as for this thing, well, what you always do when you're having issues with voltage sags due to sudden increased spikes in demand, I'm going to whack a great big electrolytic on it. And if that doesn't work, it's off to Farnell for a Raspberry Pi 3A, the lower power version, which also greatly extends battery life. But I really would miss having all those extra USB ports to plug more storage into. I can make do without them, but I'll be limited to 60 gig. That might sound like quite a lot when people are just uploading books and photos and a few MP3 files, but someone is going to think it's a good idea to upload, and the entire Lord of the Rings quadrilogy in extended edition or something, and that space is going to run out sooner or later. One nice thing about IPFS is it will automatically delete unused content when it runs out of space, so at least that's one nice thing about it. Oh, back to work I go.